Tonight is a special meeting of the Brandon Township Board. We are going to be making a decision tonight, I hope, regarding a segment of the Iron Bell Trail and the possibility of it coming through Brandon Township. So what will happen is we are running a meeting here. We're going to have a couple presentations and some questions and answers. There will be an opportunity for everyone to come up and make a comment if that's what they wish to do. I'd like to let everyone know that if you need to use the restrooms, they're out that door that way. If you have cell phones, please power them down at this time. And there's a lot of emergency exits in case you need to use one of those. So I would like to call to order the special meeting of October 5th, 2017. So we're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag up here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Allen. Here. Broughton. Here. Darnell. Here. DePalma. Here. Cordella. Here. Marshall. Here. Thurman.
Here. Okay, at this time, the board needs to approve the agenda. Are there any questions or concerns on the agenda? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda? Would someone like to second? I have a motion by Clerk Allen, seconded by Trustee Cordella to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The agenda is approved. Okay, now that we've approved our agenda, I'll read it over. We didn't bring enough copies for everyone, so I thought I would just read through it so everyone knew what we were doing tonight. First, we're going to start out with citizens' comments, followed by a presentation, a brief summary by Brandon Township Trail Subcommittee. Then we have two discussion items. We have Trustee Marshall, who's doing a presentation of facts not presented by the Trail Subcommittee on September 21st, 2017. And then by myself, Trail Subcommittee response to discussion item A. And then our new business, I'm looking at an old one. The new business will be deliberation and action on possible approval of an Iron Bell Trail segment through Brandon Township. And then we'll follow again with citizens' comments. So the citizens' comments that we're going to start out with will be on the business that I just went over, basically the Iron Bell Trail. And I do this at every meeting and take account of how many are for the trail and how many are against. And the reason I do this is because not everybody wants to come up to the microphone, but they would like to be recognized for their position. But I'd like to start it.
Can I request you ask how many people are actually residents?
Yeah, I did that last time. I was just about to do that. So what I'd like to see is how many are not a resident of the township. So we have a couple. Okay. So I'm asking that those people that are not a resident of the township raise their hand when I ask if you're in favor or opposed of the township. We just want to see from our township residents where they stand. So how many here are Brandon Township residents and in favor of the Iron Bell Trail? Okay. And thank you. And how many are Brandon Township residents and against the Iron Bell Trail? Sit down. Okay. All right, thank you. So my estimation is there are a few more people opposed to the trail than for the trail here tonight. Okay, so at this time, if you would like to make a comment, we are going to ask that you come up to the microphone in the front. We're hoping that you keep it brief since we have so many people here. We do have a time limit on the building tonight. So if you want to make a comment, just head on down to the microphone and be ready for your turn. Oh, and it's a 3-minute maximum. And I think Mr. Cordell is going to keep time for us.
Okay. Is this on? Okay. So I'm going to put myself out of my misery first. I've sent you guys a lot of data regarding census information about mobility trends in the automotive industry and also about school data. My concern is the community is turning into a retirement community. By looking at the data, by the time my kids enter school, it looks like you guys are losing another 600 students. So that concerns me. So I've asked you all to answer 3 questions. 1, are you concerned about the school information as far as the declining numbers? 2, do you think it's important that we should invest in, let's say, attracting younger families to our community? And then the last one is if you think the trail is not the right investment, what would be? So thank you.
Could everyone state their name before they make their comment? Heath?
Heath Zietz, South Hadleyville, 38.
Good evening. My name is Donnie Steele. I'm from Orion Township. I am the treasurer of Orion Township. I'm one of the people that raised their hand because I am not a citizen. However, I sit on 3 trail committees for Orion Township: the Safety Path Committee, the Paint Creek Trail Committee, and the Pollyant Trail Committee, which will all be segments of the Iron Bell Trail. I just want to thank your citizens and the board, because I know that as a board member, it's not always fun and easy, and this would be one of those times. So I appreciate your service to your community, and I thank the community for coming out and voicing their opinion. But I just want to say, as an advocate and a service provider and a township resident of Orion Township, the trails are an awesome asset to our community in many ways. And first of all, exercise and drawing the community together with the schools and families and our parks and our other communities that we are able to connect with. We have recently been able to connect seamlessly to Clarkston, Oxford, Oakland Township recently, Rochester, and we would love to be able to connect to Brandon, as well as the Pollyant Trail is trying to do a connection through Lapeer County, which would start in Dryden and go all the way up to Imlay City, which this system would also be a connection of. So I'm encouraging you to find some ways to be able to try to make this possible. One of those small ways that we do it in Orion Township is that we have a small millage of 0.25, and we've had it for 10 years, which has allowed us to connect all these communities little at a time, including the Iron Bell. And by having the connectivity and connecting the towns, I mean, you think about it, Rochester, Clarkston, we're able to, and a village of Orion, we're able to get grants that will allow the connectivity. I have a couple maps, just like 2 or 3, but to shows the connectivity between the different communities, and I just encourage Brandon to be a part of it. So that's my comment.
Hi, Brendan Ewald, 1485 Granger Road. I would just like to say the Pollyanna Trail North, ma'am, the Pollyanna Trail north of General Squire. You probably look at them on maps. I don't know if you ever hike that north of it. It is a disaster. It's not maintained, so maybe you could work on that. To start, I would like to say we look at the past to find the answers of the future. 1971, a federal state task force was assembled, a trail committee, to find the best feasible route through Michigan, an 875-mile linear trail, which is the North Country Trail. I'm sure the DNR officers know that. How many people here use that trail? 1 mile of it. Okay. So if we're going by statistics, trails don't get used that much. We're a young family. I have no problem keeping crime and stuff out of subdivisions and everything like that. This North Country Trail, which already exists, goes through the most beautiful parts of Michigan. That's why they chose that route. It's the western side. And guess where it dumps out after Ottawa National Forest? Into the town of Ironwood. We've done this. It's been done. So we're reinventing the wheel for no reason. Nobody's going to use the trail. And same thing, and then in the paper people are saying ridiculous excuses of people using heroin on trail. That's ridiculous. Well, ask the officers at the Citgo gas station in our town where people passed out from heroin. Beaky's, my grocery store, heroin in the landscaper's truck, big arrest. They know. I wish they could comment. You guys, it's not a good idea. Please do not do this to us.
I'd just like to remind everyone, when you come up to make your comment, please address the board.
Cheryl Rohr, 1765 Hummer Lake Road. I first want to address the comment from the paper and this gentleman about children statistics and so forth. In general, the population is not growing. We are not having children as we used to have children. We are not the only township who is having schools enrollments shrink. So you can't use that. That's just foolishness. Secondly, this is a dream town that we saved up to move here because we were in Troy, in the cool suburb place. We saved to move here. We saved to come here to this peaceful, wonderful place. If it were retirement for us, God bless it. That's what we came here for. We don't need to be revitalized. We are beautiful. We are unique. We don't need to be like every single other dime a dozen township and city that is out there. If you want to go exercise, well, that's another thing. Seriously, you use the excuse that not having a trail in your front yard keeps you from exercising. Really? You can't put your bike in the car and go, what about the fitness trail in Brandon? What about all the state parks that are within 5 minutes of here? They were made for biking. They were made for walking. They are safe. They are maintained. They are policed. And like he said, that other man, we're reinventing the wheel. This is crazy. Has anybody ever had exercise equipment that they bought and meant to use still sitting in their basement? Can you say that they're not getting exercise because they don't have access to it? Really, seriously. And lastly, the DNR and all these other trail people that have connections everywhere under the sun, that's their problem. They chose to put the trail in. They want to pay for it. They want to have a community like everybody else. We are unique. We are rural. That's why we voted you in, to keep us rural.
Sleva. I live in Ortonville. And I'm hoping tonight that you will make a financially responsible decision for the taxpayers of Brandon Township and the village of Ortonville and vote no on these trails. I've been researching trail costs since last March, and I have found through an article published in the county press of Lapeer County that the DNR grant for building trails only pays for 80% of the construction cost of building the trail. So that means that Brandon Township and also the village of Ortonville, where I live, will have to come up with the 20% of the construction cost for the trails that they want to build. Now, I've also found through an article published in the Oakland Press that the DNR pays 0% of maintenance costs for the trails. Now, I live in the village of Ortonville, and I pay Village of Ortonville taxes, and I pay Brandon Township taxes. And with both the township and the village wanting to build trails, this means I will have to pay 2 trail bills. Now, last year I paid 48 mills for property taxes. And I don't want my property taxes raised to pay for trails. And I don't want general funds being tapped dry by the 20% DNR matching funds for grants. These construction costs to build trails will be probably between Ortonville and the township between $8 to $11 million. 20% of $8 to $11 million is a lot of money to come up with. So I ask you to make a decision tonight that is financially responsible for the taxpayers of Brandon Township and the taxpayers of the village of Ortonville. Thank you very much.
My name is Susan Loudon. We live at 3461 Hummer Lake Road. I am a homeschool mom of 5 children, so we're not the declining problem. But we do homeschool, so in that sense, yeah. I have 4 students this year. 3 are represented here, the other one's at GOB Gymnastics. But I'm basically here because my children are for the trail. Now, they don't get everything they want, but I thought, hey, this is something that I could at least voice an opinion on. And they had a brilliant idea to even kind of make it entertaining and come up with a song. So we came up with the song to entertain you. So here we go. What do you expect from a homeschool mom, right? We want the trail. We want the trail. Get your bodies moving, get your bodies moving. We want the trail. We want the trail. Get your bikes, get your boards, get your whole family. Get your bikes, get your boards, get your whole family. Ortonville is beautiful, don't you want the world to see? Ortonville is beautiful, don't you want the world to see? We want the trail. We want the trail. We want the trail.
That could be easy to dance to. I give it an 8.
My name's Anne Marie Swanson, and I'm 2011 Granger. I happen to live on the corner of Hadley and Granger, which, if this trail goes in, will be devastating to my front yard. The residents of Brandon elected the township officials on the ideals that you would execute what's best for our township. Time and time again, the overwhelming opinions of the Iron Belt Trail should not be laid through Brandon have been expressed. We don't need this trail to be a healthier community. We have many beautiful parks and tracks to walk. Asking us to send email votes based off of vague descriptions of where the trail might go with no real concrete plans just seems unorganized and not a decision that's ready to be made. Tearing up residents' front yards in the name of the Iron Belt Trail is not my idea of being a proud participant. Please vote no, as we are unprepared to take on yet another tax hike when we have so many other areas that our funds could go to wisely. Thank you.
I'm Barb Stoltz. I live on Hummer Lake Road. I'm a retired person now. But I've lived here. We bought our property in 54 years ago. We've watched, our kids have grown up with it. Even my my grandson and granddaughter who now live in Ortonville that come up our road all the time. I don't want this trail. I don't want it on my property. We lived here, we've gone through all the floods that have been on our Hummer Lake Road. We've ruined it. We take my hill down. I don't even know how you're gonna get up and down Hummer Lake Road. Even a retired person, when I wasn't retired, I always drove to Ortonville to get my stuff, drove back. No trail, please.
I spent all morning wordsmithing this, and I should have emailed you a copy of this, but you wouldn't have had time to read it, and so I'm going to read it to you now. Yes, Fred Townsend, 3851 Granger Road. Brandon Township has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to provide an asset that would have very desirable effects for its residents and the people of Michigan. The link in the Ironville Bicycle and Hiking Trail proposed to cross Brandon Township would provide a unique opportunity for people to enjoy the healthful benefits of outdoor exercise and recreation. It would increase the physical and mental fitness of trail users. It would help to reduce the epidemic of obesity and diabetes in our state. It would allow easy bicycle travel to neighboring towns. We need to have a trail in Brandon Township. Many of the objections to a trail through Brandon Township deal with encroachment on residents' property and privacy, driveway crossings, property values, and safety. Many of these concerns would be alleviated if the Brandon Township Board would rescind its removal of Route C, the Rails to Trails route, from consideration as a route for the trail. The Rails to Trails route would be the most direct route. It would mostly pass residents' backyards instead of front yards. It would be safest in keeping trail users away from most driveway and road crossings and the hazards of road traffic. A moment of distraction by a driver could wipe out a biker or runner. It would be the most pleasant to travel because it is mostly level, and will pass trees and fields, and mostly be away from the noise, dust, and dirt of road traffic. Finally, it would be the lowest cost and easiest to implement because it already exists as a former railway route. Compared to the alternative trail routes, the Rails to Trails route would greatly reduce expense and the massive disruption to roadsides, narrow roads with steep banks, driveways, front yards, overhead and buried utilities, wetlands, and large old trees. For example, consider the disruption we're seeing now on the building of the Independence Oaks Trail along Sashua. 1 minute, okay. That it's causing along Sashua Road. Building a trail along Hummer Lake Road would be even worse. Route C was the preferred route in the first survey of possible routes by township residents. Therefore, the township board should rescind its decision to exclude the Rails to Trails route, which is Route C, from consideration as a possible route for the trail. The board should then select the Rails to Trails route as the Brandon Township link in the Bell-Ann Trail. Thank you.
Cheryl Goff for 40 South Hadley, former township board member, because I'm not here to comment on whether you should vote for or against the trail. I'm here to question whether you are ready to make that decision. I know there are outside forces pushing this decision, but I attended the meeting on Monday, and it's evident that all the facts were not presented to the board. Some of these new facts that are just coming to light now, and have you really had time to investigate these facts and how that will impact us as taxpayers? You have a fiduciary responsibility and an overall responsibility to us citizens. And you need to take your responsibility seriously. And if you are not ready, and if you have new facts that you have not had time to investigate yet, I implore you to delay this and do it when you're ready. Thank you.
Robert McCullough, 14 Sherwood Road. The bike trail through Brandon Township is a bad idea. I'm concerned about the funding of the maintenance, which hasn't been disclosed. And I think that the survey person should have stated, would you support the trail if your taxes are going to go up? Number one. Number two, would you support the trail if it goes in front of your house or in the back of your house? And also I'm concerned about the slide in the presentation that says that the board has a right to exercise eminent domain. Is this trail so important to you that you're going to take some people's property? I ask you to please vote no for the bike trail.
Hello, my name is Dale Kramer. I live in Brandon Township, and I am for the trail. I'd like to see the trail in my front yard, specifically on M15 and Seymour Lake. I think it would be the best route, but I'd be happy with any route that goes through Brandon Township. You know, the subcommittee did a great job, and I would hope that you would review that information. I was here for the 21st, September 21st presentation. It was put on with very professional, very laid out very well. And, you know, as they dug into that and looked for answers to all the questions that were requested to them, they found answers that were all positive. You know, there was complaints that there was no opposition viewpoint. Well, I think they did investigate and didn't find any supporting evidence to support the negative side or opposition to the trail. It just came out positive because it's a positive for the community. It to be an asset for everyone to have. You know, if you review the website, it's 100% funded by grants. Doesn't cost Brandon Township residents anything except for the installation. It doesn't go, everybody gets up and complains that it's going to be through their yard. Well, it'd be in the right-of-way. I'm on M15. The right-of-way is 60 feet or more on my side. It's not my property. I don't pay taxes on it. The DOT can put in there whatever they want. If they want to widen a lane, or if they want to do anything, it's theirs. It's not mine. And if they put the trail in there, it doesn't impact me because it's not my property. Now, they just did it up on Gale Road on Sunday. I was up there for the dedication. What a beautiful installation. It was quick, easy. It's just off the road, off the pavement, probably 20 to 30 feet. An asphalt walkway. People are out there using it on Sunday. Beautiful day. You know, we could have the same thing here. An asset to the community. And most importantly, this is $9 million that's been taken out of our taxes over the years that could come back to us and be spent in this community. And we didn't even, go into the fact that local contractors will be benefiting from that. And earlier on, there was talk about the declining enrollment in the schools. And, you know, and the reason for that, obviously, is we don't have a friendly community for young families, people to be outside. You know, go down M15, there's not even a sidewalk from one end to the other. Every community north of us on M15 all the way to Tower. At least one side, if not the other. Where does our money spent? Well, we just, two months ago, I've been to all the meetings. 2 months ago, the Brandon Township approved $400,000 for Brandon Township Park to put in pavement. Now, if we can afford, wherever that money came from, yeah, okay. If we can afford to spend that kind of money on the park over there, they can certainly afford to spend a few $1,000s on maintenance for the park throughout the year. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda Crumpets, and I live on Seymour Lake Road. And my husband and I moved up here a year ago. We moved from Royal Oak, where we lived for 5 years. And we're 30 years old, and we're starting our family in Brandon Township. Why did we pick Brandon Township? Because it's not like Royal Oak. It doesn't have sidewalks. My baby was here and could sing a song and say, "No trail." But I don't have that opportunity right now. But God willing, in 7 years, I'll have 3 more behind me, and would still say, "No trail."
This decision that we're talking about is based on where Mike Allman, 2330 Homer Lake Road. Like the gentleman that spoke just before, he doesn't care. He's on M15, he's got 90 feet, whatever. I'm 30 feet from the road. 30 feet. I don't know where the heck you're putting this darn trail, but if you're coming down Homer Lake Road on my side of the street, you're going to be 20 feet from my front door. You're going to take down 3 beautiful oak trees. I just planted about 30 evergreens out there. So a lot of our decisions here are based on where we live and where the trail's going to be. This whole hokey-dokey thing about Trail C, which was like the cheapest, the best, and all of a sudden it gets taken off the board? No, come on. Let us decide. We'll tell you. See, you guys made a decision based on the rumor is one of you guys up here don't like it because it's by your house. Well, baloney. How about my house? It's going to be 20 feet away from this darn thing. Thank you.
Okay, y'all know me. I'm Rick Gibbons. I'm not going to give you my address. Okay, no cussing. All right, first of all, no one got the AASHTO guidelines to find out how to build a trail. That's like building a house without having plans. There are numerous cost figures that can't be finalized because no route has been specified. Numbers on vote pro-con heavily skewed for pro. When we last voted, it was 75% no, 25% yes. Dwight then started using old votes, data, and projections from far back as 2012 to skew the votes for pro view. All right, business survey was done by Dale Kramer, who was not on committee board. Also, his survey questions to businesses were as if they were sponsoring a Little League softball team. Let me find my spot here. All right, a rumor was out there about 30 foot of your property would be lost. I'm the one who said that because AASHTO guidelines, it says that. Dale always denied it. He just admitted it. It's 30 feet. That's how much it comes off the road. All right? No one other than Kathy, Dwight, and Jen have been able to find a realtor who said your property value will go down with the trail in your yard. If it's in your yard, your property value goes down. If it's in the township, it goes up. According to Jen Bickle, no additional insurance is needed, yet everyone else who has researched it differs. All property owners are liable for dog bites, animal bites, and liability will go up because people are going to be in private yards. Kathy stated no tax money is needed, yet she states that if property value goes up, down, or taxes would do so accordingly for the trail. Kathy will request a tax millage later if necessary, yet she maintains maintenance costs will come from private funding. In Dwight's questionnaire, he stated no cost for asphalt maintenance for 20 years, yet says $2,063 a year for asphalt maintenance. Kristen Wolftain said maintenance costs would be between $30,000 and $50,000 per year, depending on length and needs of trails, and should be in a separate account. Kathy says trail maintenance fund would be kept in a separate account, but she is already trying to raid the recreational department. Okay? If you were saying 1 minute, let's get down to township will have to purchase a snowmobile, a gator, a tractor, at approximately $50,000 in a building. So that's $100,000 just for the things to maintain this. And I'll just skip to the end. Dale Kramer was also caught lying on flyers, and he was allowed to do a survey. The fifth.
Get him off stage.
After all this, I feel the Kathy acting in this manner and regarding the trail from picking the committee to how meetings were handled. A large number of the township citizens are contacted by me, or have contacted me discussing recalling Kathy since her actions throughout this process have been very questionable. If she put half as much effort into the more vital issues of our community needs, all would be better served. Most of us don't want this. We don't need this. The cost is too high. This is a pork belly project by a lame duck governor, self-serving supervisor, and has been a total waste of our time. It will make our township beggars for funds competing with other townships. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Deanna DeTore, Rolling Acres Drive. I've owned property here for 30 years. I've been a resident for 20 years. I've served on the school board. All of your time is greatly appreciated. It is not an easy effort, but you have been voted in to make hard decisions. This is an example of, it feels like there's a lot of name throwing and name calling, and a lot of this negative thinking is based around fear. People make decisions based on two things. You're out of fear or out of love. I know it sounds hokey pokey. This is about our community, supporting our community as we move forward into 2018. We have to look beyond your fear and make hard decisions that are going to positively impact. People are afraid of maybe it may cost a little bit. Things cost money. When you want improvement and you want change, no one likes change, but guess what? That's how we evolve as society. You've been elected to make hard decisions. Do the right one. When I sat at that last meeting we sat in there for 3.5 hours. Most of the people in that meeting wanted the trail. Now we have people here that are named, excuse me, I'm talking. Would you mind? Really? I have my 3 minutes as well. Can you try to respect the people in the room?
Listen, we need for the audience to stay quiet. If you cannot stay quiet, please exit the doors and talk outside. If you need help, we have officers here that can help you exit. If someone's talking up here, they have the floor.
Thank you. I'm allowed to have my 3 minutes.
And they need to address the board.
And thank you, board members, truly for your support and for the committee. Hours and hours out of our day to do this. I do have an opinion for the board. The person that owns property nearly adjacent that should never have had the opportunity to vote, they should have taken the high road and not voted that day when they turned down that Route C. It was inappropriate and it was not in the best interest of the community. We are here to support our community. We need to rebuild our schools. We need to foster an environment that's going to grow on a self-supportive, love-based environment, not fear and name-calling. I mean, how old are we already? As to the board members, my apologies. I support it, my family supports it, most of my neighbors support it. Wherever it goes, make it the least evasive to the community. It needs to go somewhere. We have grant money available. And more importantly than anything, we are creating communities. We're connecting Holly and Clarkston and Lake Orion. How are we to build if we don't begin to connect? A lot of these decisions are based on fear. I applaud you and thank you for your time and ask that you make the hard call. You were voted in to call the shots. Yes, we have to base it on what the community says, but we spent way too much time already trying to make this decision and push it out further. You're there to make the shot, and I really would applaud you to go beyond it and look beyond and move into an environment that's going to allow us to grow. We don't have sewers and waters. It's hindering our economic development. The schools are losing money. This is very difficult when you're trying to bring in community. Thank you very much.
Denise Vandenbosch, 1885 Iola.
And years ago, we made the sidewalk from town to the high school with the promise that it would continue on down to Glass Road and join the community. So I guess I don't understand why we don't use this as a benefit to do what we wanted to do long ago and put it right down M15, join Glass Road up to the schools so that we can get these children off the road. Every morning when I drive to work at 7 o'clock in the dark, in the rain, in the snow, there are kids walking on M15. You want to talk about safety? That's not safe. And if they're not walking there, then they're walking in the weeds. So let's use this money and this trail to benefit us and put it right down M15, down Seymour Lake Road so I can walk to Cook's Farm Dairy if I want, and join it right into the Pollyanna Trail. That seems like it would benefit us and benefit the trail. And it's not really hurting anybody because like that gentleman over there said, it's in the front yard and you really don't own that much close to the road. That's it.
Kapulaga, Rattlesnake Lane. A couple comments. I've heard a couple of times that this is the building of it would be 100% grant funded. I'm sure you guys saw this in materials. I saw it in the presentation. It's not 100% grant funded. It requires 25% matching funds, which means it's 75% grant, 25% us. The second thing is, I run the Clinton River Trail in Auburn Hills. It's a nice trail. Auburn Hills, Rochester, Lake Orion, they have a vastly larger population than we have that they can draw. Volunteers. The presentation 2 weeks ago, there were a lot of volunteers needed to help maintain this trail once it's built. They have a much larger population to draw in for those volunteers and for the tax base as well without having to raise taxes. So if we put a trail through Brandon community, that's 8 miles of trail that our tiny little rural community will be responsible for maintaining forever. Thank you.
Hello, Sharon Van Dis, 117 Church Street. I didn't really plan on this. I really wasn't sure if I was even going to come tonight. I'm here in Dave's absence. Dave Van Dis. Sorry. He's in the hospital and he has been for 9 days. He would have been here. I'm not encouraging you, I'm not telling you how to vote. I think a decision more than likely has been made. All I'm saying, and you've heard it in the past from me, Dave and I extensively have ridden trails throughout Michigan. So you're looking at somebody who thinks they are positive. No syringes, no garbage. I've said it in articles. Just positive people out there enjoying, whether or not they're running, walking, biking, mothers with their children, strollers, what have you. So many negative people out here. We all have our views. I will not mention one citizen who lives here, who has lived here for many more years than most of us here. He was very excited about the trails. He's in his 80s. He no longer comes to these meetings. I saw him 2 days ago. No, Sharon, I've never seen so much negativity. All I'm saying, whatever decision you make, I hope you feel good with it. But all I know, I want to thank also anyone who's here, who was part of the trail committee, who worked hard, because I know they, like Dave, 2 years ago when this started, there was so much excitement and enthusiasm. Many petitions were signed, yes. But whatever decision, I hope you feel good about it. And you know what? If it doesn't come through this area, it's not going to bother me anymore, because there are many other trails that I will enjoy, but I feel bad for the ones that will not maybe be able to see that opportunity, because I think a number of you and people out here have not been on trails to really be able to give a really good opinion. But thank you for your work. And again, I thank the people in this audience who were involved. Thank you.
Rochelle Everin, 6230 Oak Hill Road. We I've lived here for 12 years. I have 6 children, and Oak Hill is on the very south end of the township, and I have tried to encourage my kids to get to their friends not using gasoline, and unfortunately, there's no safe way for us to get north. So instead, we take our bikes and our longboards and our walking shoes, and we go through the park, down into Clarkston, where we buy picnic lunches, and we buy bicycles, and we go out to eat, and we spend our money there. I'd really like to turn that around. I'd like my kids to be able to ride their bikes or walk to school or home from practice, say, and I'd like to spend my money down at Hamilton's or other places in Ortonville. Thank you.
Chad Rummel, 5556 Granger Road. I also didn't plan anything as I was not planning on being here this early this evening. I'm going to take a little bit different tactic and stay away from my personal views, I guess. I've been on trails. I actually proposed to my wife on the Paint Creek Trail in Rochester. So yes, I've been on trails. I like trails. But for Brandon Township, at this point in time, I cannot put my backing behind the trail going through here. Primarily because of the way and the information that has been mishandled, misrepresented, not even given to people. It's been 3+ years. We haven't got a path. You can't give us firm comments on costs. The presentation says construction costs are covered, but it's not. It says insurance rates are not going to go up, but people say they are. There's no hard facts. We have comments that we're going to have millage rates later or not. We don't know. I haven't heard any conversation about what are we going to do for parking. I mentioned this before in one of the other township meetings. Regardless of where you run this trail through the township, there is a very significant portion of the population that are not going to be within walking distance or biking distance, 100 feet from the trail. People are still going to either have to bike on the roads to get to the trail or drive to the trail. Where are they going to park? We've talked about the trail routes. I haven't seen a single spot for parking. That's another significant cost and necessary need for land. I also haven't heard any discussion about porta-johns, waste management, any of that. Right? Are we going to put the trail down Seymour Lake Road and put a Johnny John next to somebody's house? Things like that haven't even been discussed or covered, but you want to say, yes, we're going to do a trail. How can you make that decision without knowing roughly where it's going to go and knowing roughly where it's going to be laid out? On top of which, trails don't make economic growth. Parks and recs don't make economic growth. Economics make economic growth. Jobs, business, that grows a community. People can work here and then enjoy the other amenities. We're essentially trying to put the cart before the horse. We want the amenities without the jobs. You want to spend $7 or $8 million currently that most likely will be closer to 9 or 10 because all construction, as we know, goes higher. When we can't get businesses along Seymour Lake or M15 because of sewers. So you want to build a trail, but you don't want to help the businesses come. How is that going to help? Again, like I said, I like trails. I would love to have a trail, but not knowing the financials and knowing that the financials are probably going to be worse in the long run, I cannot get back behind this. And I hope you don't either. Thank you.
I'm Brian Price. I live on Humber Lake Road near Truax Lake. I'm in favor of trail. I think it'd be a good thing for the township. I avoided Dixie Highway last Sunday because I knew I'd be backed up on traffic by the Renaissance Festival. So I came down through Holly Road and into Atlas and rode down Gale Road. And lo and behold, holy mackerel, there's a new paved trail along Gale Road from Atlas all the way into Goodrich. I counted 22 people either riding a bike, walking, or running. This is a brand new thing. I don't know how long it's been there, but I know one thing. 22 people Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning were really enjoying themselves. And I think the trail in Brandon Township would be a good thing. Like I said, I live on Hummer Lake Road. It's a gravel road. It's not posted. I can't walk on that road. I can't ride my bike on that road because people go by my house at 55 miles an hour because it's not posted. And there isn't another dirt road in the township that's posted. But you can drive down M15 and it's only 50 miles an hour going through Ortonville. But it's 55 miles an hour going through my road. So I'm not riding my bike and I'm not walking that road, but I sure would use a trail. And I'd like to see one come here in Brandon Township. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Hewa, and I live on Granger Road in Brandon Township. And I moved out here in my young 30s or early 30s for the ruralness. Just like the other young people said today, that's exactly why my husband and I moved to Brandon Township. And for all the people who want to get some exercise, we have plenty of options. Besides using all the equipment in our basements, there's the Ortonville State Rec area, Independence Oaks on Sashaba, the Pollyant Trail, Pain Creek Trail. There's so many options. So if you want to go up bicycling, there's many places you certainly can do that. What concerns me is that it is in my backyard. And in the Citizen newspaper, there's articles like The Creeper, and that was a title of a peeping Tom. And as a female, I love being outside, but I always want to make sure I'm on a hiking trail in groups for my own safety. And I'm sure if you ask the females in this crowd tonight, most of them would say they're maybe a little hesitant when they go on a hiking trail by themselves. And if they wouldn't admit that, I hope they would remember about the 2 young girls who were killed in Indiana on that hiking trail. April Millisap was killed. Her head was bashed in on the McComb Orchard Trail. And I realize that drugs is a growing epidemic problem in the several communities, but if they're overdosing at the Citgo gas station right on M15 and South Street, I'm sure they're going to overdose right in my backyard. I'm just giving them a more hidden area to do that. And another thing that bothers me is that I don't feel like there's much transparency. I really have a hard time with the communication in the Citizen. Just like the gentleman said before, there's so many strange email surveys and deadlines, and we were told this was a dead issue over and over again, and you've certainly resurrected it from the dead for years right now. And another thing that bothers me is, thank you, I believe that there's bias already in the subcommittee, because Mr. Woodbridge in the last Citizen paper said that this would be the Route 66 of all trails. So that leads me to believe that you're already biased. And I just think it would be more important here for the people. Since it's a government for the people, by the people. Think of the skate park in our local village. Think about what a disaster that looks like. So if we have the funding, let's put it to what we already have in the community and try to improve upon that. I'm also concerned about my freedom to shoot in my backyard. I know there's a lot of hunters in the room who I'm sure would not appreciate losing that privilege. So I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
My name is Connie Fisher and I live on Hummer Lake Road. I just have a few items I'd like to review for you and remind you of. The first one is, the name of this trail is the Iron Bell Trail, and that's for a reason. It derives its name from the trains that ran on the tracks. None of the proposed routes that are left on the table run on the railroad tracks. Secondly, I'd like to say the claim that this trail will spur economic development is specious. We all know that sewers will have to come to M15 before more economic development becomes a reality. Development that we may or may not want, that could include box stores and chain stores. This trail was not proposed, according to the internet, to run through people's front yards. in already developed areas. It was not conceived to force the removal of trees and other vegetation, nor was it meant to disturb well-established wetlands. And placing this trail across dozens and dozens of driveways is an accident waiting to happen. If biking enthusiasts, such as the Black Hawk Bicycle Club, want to ride bikes to this trail, they should take their bikes to the already established trails. Those who want to golf, take their clubs to a golf course. Those who want to swim, go to a pool or a lake. Those who want to play tennis, take their rackets to a tennis court. Those who want to bike shouldn't ask their neighbors to put public trails in their front yards. I would like to ask each township board member to ask themselves if they would like a public trail running across their front yard. If their answer is no, then I ask you to consider the negative impact that this trail would have on so many of your constituents and vote no.
My name is Gabrielle Spencer. I live at 1949 Viola Street. I haven't researched this like everybody else has. I've just caught little glimpses in the Citizen, but I think I reflect the silent majority of people that really would like to see a trail here. When I talk to my neighbors, what do you think? Is the trail going to come in? Everybody wants a trail. Not everybody wants to come to a meeting. I mean, it's not fun for you or anybody else here, but there really is, I think, a silent majority that really wants a trail here. And in terms of people like walking into your front yard, I live on Viola Street. I have people walk back and forth in front of my house all the time, and I've never had any safety issues. I've never had any garbage issues. It's nice to meet my neighbors. People are walking their dogs. I consider it a nice experience. So I just want to represent the silent majority.
Hello, my name is Laura Fry. I used to live on Oakwood, now I live on Oak Hill. We've been here about 30 years, raised 4 beautiful children. My husband and I we both love using trails. And we had actually looked at property when we thought there was going to be a trail many, many years ago on the old railroad. And that we thought was a very exciting thing to have for our children to access. My mom lives on the Pollyant Trail. No problems, they're 90 years old. We like to bike, we're active. We think the trail would be a great thing to Ortonville. Just this summer, we spent time in a very small village in Washington State. And it happened to be on a trail, and we found out a couple days after we were there, and we went 3 days to walk the trail, and we met some of the most wonderful people there. We met we met some 72-year-olds on a tandem bike that were crossing Washington State. And it was, it was very inspirational, and we love using the trails, and I think Ortonville would benefit. But I do hope and wish that you guys, if you are thinking about the trail, reconsider the rails to trails. As like many people have said here, it's already established, it's fairly clean, it would be an easy route, and I think a lot of, and less disruptive to a lot of the citizens and the people who are here tonight. Thank you.
Paul Jansen, I live on Woodland. It's right out off of Hummer Lake. I live on Truex Lake there. I come to cancel Brian's vote out. We do this all the time, so. I hate to see the township people arguing about this. I think part of it is your guys' problem. You should have picked one route, and then the people on that route, you should have interviewed. When you campaign, you go to people's houses. This is important. It's been going on for 2 years or longer, and you didn't make a decision. What kind of business can be in business and not make decisions for 2 years? So, and I know you have a hard job, okay? I wouldn't want to do it. I'm not going to do it, so you don't have to worry about me. It's crazy what you're going through. You have to talk to the people that the trail is going through their property. Take, for instance, my house. If you come in my property, you're cutting down 100-year-old oak trees. I didn't buy that piece of property for that. That trail will be 30 to 40 feet from my front door, from the side of my house, the kitchen windows. Would any of you that want to vote for the trail want that on a beautiful piece of property? Does the trail bother me? No. I don't care if you put a trail in. I don't want to ruin my property. Why do I feel that way? I have farmland up north. What happened 2 years ago? Government come in and decided they want to put a transmission tower through it. 15 or so years ago, Hummer Lake got flooded. What did the board try to do? Come across my property and put a drain through the lot I have next door. And now I'm going through this again? Why am I against it? Don't judge somebody unless you walked in their moccasins. For the woman that said that fear is controlling this, I'm a combat Vietnam veteran. Fear does not rule. That was said to try to divide us. Why are we trying to divide each other? Put it across your property, I don't have a problem. I don't want it on mine. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Ushman. I live off of Mill Street in the village of Ortonville. I too represent the residents of the village of Ortonville, like you do for the residents of Brandon Township. Of the two trails proposed or left on the table 4 routes ago, both trails, mind you, run right smack dab in the middle of the village of Ortonville. A concentration of residents much closer than people that have 1.5, 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres. We're talking about people living right next to each other in downtown village. So me, I have to think of the residents that live in the village. Of the 2 proposals that you have out there today, I cannot see a 10 to 12 foot wide trail dumping into a village, any part of the village, 3 foot wide sidewalks. I can't see a 10 to 12 foot marking on the Mill Street coming uptown to be able to safely have people use that trail coming right up in the middle of town. Once they get into town, what are they going to do? So to me, public safety, we've heard a lot about it. I heard a lot of great reasons to have trails. I enjoy trails myself. I am an outdoors person. I came to the Brandon Township for the exact reason to be out here in the rural areas of Michigan, northern Oakland County. It's a beautiful place to be. So for this reason, to me, I think you need to consider the people that live on the trail, that proposed trail route, just like I have to think about the people living on that trail route through town. There was a talk about the skate park. A skate park for the children is great. Guess what? It was a bad location. Great idea, bad location. We lived with it for a long time. Thank you. So for that, I think it's important to recognize the people that are going to be on that trail when you vote tonight.
Hi, Kathy Bono, 1761 Seymour Lake Road. I didn't plan on speaking tonight. I just wanted to listen. The trail is probably not going to go across my yard. I find out now, and that's good. What I think you're dealing with here is passion. You're dealing with a bunch of people who 20 or 30, 40, 50 years ago bought their property with no idea that that easement or right-of-way would ever be put towards use, such as bringing in a trail, which brings in the public into their yard. Maybe they thought it would be used for the electrical company or water or some kind of usage like that. But I guarantee you none of these people who bought these lots, these properties, ever thought that a sidewalk would be going through their front yard. So you're dealing with a lot of people's passion. This is their home, this is their life. This is what they work for every day of their life. If you're going to change their lifestyle, their life being, you've got to expect confrontation like this. I'm not against a trail, and I'm sure a lot of these people aren't against the trail too. But where you're getting your passion from are these people who these trails are going to affect right in their yard. It will affect them financially, it'll affect their privacy, it'll take away their greenery, it'll take away their everything that they ever wanted to live here in Ortonville. Now sure, that's sacrifice of the few for benefit of the many. But it's a huge sacrifice for the few. And I don't think that it's right that these people basically are stabbed in the back just to put a trail into Ortonville. And that's all I want to say, because I just want to speak for everybody. You need to know how this is going to affect them. It's not a little thing. If it were to go through my yard, I would want to sell my house. And you know, I'm a single mother, I live by myself, and if you put a trail in my front yard, you're bringing in outsiders. My security is gone. Nobody ever walks down my road now as it is. You bring in a sidewalk, there's going to be people walking down and through my yard all the time. So I just want to come from that point of view. Not against a trail, just against the changes that would come to my yard and others.
Hello again. Shannon Johns, 1745 Palmer Lake Road. You all know I'm against the trail. I didn't move here for a sidewalk through my front yard. I get that some people like that, and when they bought their house, there was a sidewalk there, and they could meet people. I moved away from that. I brought my young family, we have young kids, we homeschool, but you know, we're still here. We go into town all the time. I've never, ever met anybody in town that wasn't nice, pleasant, friendly. My kids dance at Miss Lynn's, we go to the feed store for all our supplies. And I feel like I'm just repeating myself. It's physically irresponsible to say, hey, yes, let's do a trail when we don't have a route. You have no route. You can't decide on a route, and but yet you want to say yes or no. You have no idea how much it's going to cost. You have no idea how many people it's going to impact. And I mean like personally impact, like tearing up their front yard and hiking up their insurance and doing all that fun stuff. But yeah, we're still going to sit here and make this decision. It's been over 2 years. The very least, we could have had a route to decide on. Okay, this is the route, yes or no? It would have made this whole thing so much easier. You wouldn't have so many people fighting with each other. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. We're a small community. Most people moved here because they wanted to be part of a small community. They did not want all this infighting and all this craziness. And that's what's going to happen. And you really need to look at the people you're impacting. The people who are going to leave this community if a trail is going to go through their front yard because of the safety issues. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's no safety issues. I live by a trail. I can tell you there are safety issues. There are a lot of safety issues. But I really think that it should be further in the planning process before we make this decision. And we're not. And we are not prepared to vote yes on this. Because again, you can't even tell us where the money's going to come from. Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Myers from Seymour Lake Road. First, thanks to everyone for putting in the time. I know you guys are in a bit of a marathon, so thank you to all of you. And thanks to all of the citizens who actually thoughtfully, courageously, and often passionately share their thoughts. So clearly, the complexity of these differing viewpoints, desires, and expectations is evident as you guys have heard the different opinions from retirees to people with young families, people who want rural life, or people who live in a village. It's very complex, the problem you have at hand. And as such, the burden of the board is to find a solution that best serves the interest of the community as a whole. However, it is my opinion that the board does not possess sufficient and accurate information to support a decision at this time. There is no route selected. It doesn't make sense for you to make a decision without having exactly what you're deciding upon, especially when you're threatening to use eminent domain to take people's property. There's no accurate quotations from multiple sources. I don't know of any project on the scale of $9 to $11 million that occurs anywhere that doesn't have accurate quotations from a construction company for all the permits, for all the construction, that you can compare and contrast on quotes to verify that the funding can be secured. There's no clear understanding of impacts on the case-by-case business, or on the case-by-case of all the people who would be affected by the trail, again, because the route hasn't been selected. And finally, the definition of invoking eminent domain is to exercise function of public character. So the question comes back is this the best use of our efforts right now at this time for a trail? I'm not against trails in general, we use them quite a bit as a family. However, I think there's other things that maybe should use our efforts at this time to improve in the community. Infrastructure, paving roads, etc. Thank you very much.
We would really like to just limit this to one comment, because if we do two comments from everyone.
I've been sitting here this whole time and hearing some great ideas, some great thoughts. I'm looking at all of you. And people are saying maybe decisions already been made. Nobody up here is taking any notes. Nobody up here is writing anything down. Nobody's saying, wow, look at this idea. Yeah. Well, your pens don't come off your hands because I haven't seen them. Is it just hokey thing? You guys already made up your mind? Like you crossed off Route C, which is the best route? Huh? What the heck is going on here?
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment that has not come up to the microphone yet? One more. If there's anyone else, please make your way down.
My name is Nadine Demetrician. I live on Sherwood Road. I made some of this comment last meeting. I know you guys are working hard. I would not want to be in your place. However, I don't think most of us want to be where we are. And my comment's a little bit different because I personally, and I've talked to a lot of people that have never heard anything about the Iron Bell Trail. Never been mentioned on the news, but I think that, I don't know what control you have over this, but the funds that are available should be used for a lot of other things than a frivolous, and I think this is frivolous if it's going to go from Belle Isle to Iron Mountain. It's a waste of money. We have so many trails in many of our parks in our communities that are available to everybody that wants to do those kinds of things. So to have another trail extended that far kind of is frivolous. And also, unless I've been misinformed, I was told that a lot of our parks they've had to close certain things because they don't have the funds to maintain them. Well, we have a lot of money here that would help maintain whatever needs to be fixed in a lot of and there are parks nearby, Independence, Oaks, Kensington, a lot of them. And in regards to a comment that a gentleman that was up here that said he lives on Hanley Road and he can't go down his road because it's 50 miles an hour, and I totally agree with that. I live on Sherwood and they go zipping by, maybe even faster than 50. But when my grandson, who's now 14, was 2 years old, I used to be able to take a stroller and walk down the road and there was no problem. So maybe people need to think about other people and be respectful, period, and not be driving that fast. We have horseback riders, we have dogs, we have cats, we have all kinds of animals in our area. So maybe we all need to step back and not be in such a hurry and do the right thing for one another. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My name is Diane Kwiatkowski. I live on 1925 Kent Road. One of the things in listening to everything that's been going on tonight, and this is my first time at a meeting because I read it in the paper, I'm very interested in it. This is a unique, fantastic opportunity for this community, but we need compromise. It seems that a lot of people who are against it have concern about where it's being located. To me, C sounds like the right choice. It's already there. I don't know why it was rescinded, but it should be reconsidered. Financially, it would be better. Also, this is what we need to do in this country, is more compromise. We don't need to have everybody against each other. I think most of the people here really wouldn't mind a trail. They're concerned with its location. Since the railroad tracks are already here, their path is already here, the easement is already here, you should really consider this and rescind that, because that is the most practical way to connect us in something very unique for this state that will bring tourism, will bring other things, and will also help us move forward as a community. So I urge you to rescind your C vote in compromise.
Hi, Mark Robinson. I live on Mill Street. I've been at the last couple of meetings, Monday nights, a week and a half ago when we first all met here. And one of the comments I really want to stress on is, like, when I first moved into Ortonville 28 years ago, right on Mill Street, there was no sidewalks or anything else. So we liked it, it was fine, you know, the kids still made their way to school. Then, a couple years later, they put sidewalks on one side of the street. Then they came over on my side of the street, put in sidewalks and everything. And I measured, I'm 18 feet from the current sidewalk. When you bring in that trail, the trail is 10 feet wide, and at the last meeting, there's 2-foot easement on both sides. I mean, I'm gonna have people right under my window. There's so many blind spots coming down Mill Street, and nobody does 25 coming down Mill Street. You know, they fly down there, and I know that's a huge accident waiting to happen. So I'm encouraging you guys to vote no on this trail. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Kenneth 3777 South Hadley. I remember several years ago, me and my son on that Route C, it starts there at Granger and Hadley. We rode that trail for all the way to Oxford, and we didn't go through anybody's yard. It crosses Perry Lake Road, it crosses Seymour Lake, or Sassamore Road, it crosses Baldwin, it goes all the way into Oxford. And we didn't cross anybody's yard. It was rural, it was back in the woods. I mean, there was no traffic, no noise. And that trail exists. Maybe they should use it. And also, north of Ortonville, Goodrich area, there's a trail on the east side of M15. I've never seen anybody ever walking on that trail, never. There's another trail going out of Grand Blanc along Dixie Highway going south, paved trail. We go to Grand Blanc quite often at Walmart, Sam's Club. I never see anybody. My wife is here. She never sees anybody on that trail, never. Very few people use the trail. So I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you.
name, please.
Hello, people and the board. My name is Leroy Brooks. Live on Granger Road. I've lived out there 47 years. Owned the property for over 50 years. And my property is approximately 18 feet from the railroad bed. Hit that there. And I am voting no because there are so many unanswered items going on here now. We don't know about all of the financing yet. We don't know about any lighting for the nighttime. We don't know of any garbage pickup, and we don't know of any bathrooms. Nobody has mentioned that there. Nobody has mentioned that there. And I know that there's 8 people setting up there that are going to dictate what that maybe 2,000 people, some of them for it, some of them no. But we don't have the answers yet. So how can you people vote for something that is going to affect 1,500 people, 2,000 people, by only 8 people? 8 of these. And that there. And I know that Kathy said a while back, we do not want to put it to a vote because Kathy said it would not pass. Am I right, Kathy? And I think that that's the result that he got to say. But I would say that there should be an oddball number voting up there because possibility there's going to be a 4 for it, 4 no. What happens then? I don't know. Thank you, people.
Is there anyone else that has not had a chance to speak that would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, we can move on with our meeting. So first, what we're going to do is a recap of the presentation that was on September 21st, and Dwight Woodbridge is going to do a summary. So we'll turn it over to Dwight.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you very much for coming. I also want to thank everybody for their input tonight. It's been educational, and something we certainly appreciate your feedback.
Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm just trying to follow a bit closer. Excuse me.
Dwight, can you hold on just a minute? The board is asking to move down so they can see the slides.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I do not see on the agenda a recap of the presentation.
Summary, it says summary.
Okay. All right.
If the board members Just want to, it's up to you. If you want to go down there for a better view or step to the side, it won't be that long. But if, no. No, it's just the summary slides that you've seen. Okay.
Thank you. So this is, as they noted, basically a 100,000-foot summary of the presentation that was given on September 21st. And that was actually a summary of all the work that the subcommittee had done gathering information for the Township Board. Basically, the contents of what I'm going to cover briefly tonight is the purpose of the Brandon Trail Subcommittee, basically the mission statement, and then some specific topics or the summary of specific topics that the subcommittee researched to provide answers to the board members. Desirability for trails, trail construction, safety and liability, construction costs, funding sources, and trail management. And then there's an appendix that documents what the electronic information that was gathered provides the Township Board. The mission statement, or the subcommittee's purpose, was to compile questions and research answers to all the components involved in building and maintaining a trail. We were appointed in early June, and then we were given the time window basically to this point to provide our results. What we were not tasked to do, the Brandon Trails Subcommittee was not tasked to recommend a specific trail route or recommend what they decide on tonight. That was outside our scope. So in terms of going through the specific groupings, the desirability for trails in Brandon Township, and I do want to mention for everybody, the entire report is on the Brandon Township website, and it's about 3/4 down on the homepage. And if you don't have availability to get to the website, there's a hard copy at the township office. So from a desirability for trails summary, there were two surveys conducted early in the time slot, letters to the township, local business community survey responses. Those favored a trail through the township. There was a recent email survey that was 53% no, 46% yes. There was a business survey conducted that showed a favorability towards a trail. The opposition to Route C, due to in the interest of public safety, resulted in its removal by the Township Board on May 1st of this year. Opposition to the trail resulted in a removal of Route A by the Township Board on September 5th of this year. The Principal Planner, Oakland County Economic Development and Community Affairs, Kristen Wiltfang, has expressed Oakland County's willingness to work with Brandon Township as the community residents and elected officials consider being part of the Iron Dell Trail biking route. She's a partner in this process of moving this along. If you look at the trail construction considerations, it's a type of trail. The question is, do the Brandon Township residents want a trail that is hiking and biking friendly, or is the community looking for just a biking solution to have the Iron Mill Trail come through? If biking only, a widened shoulder or bike lane is better than just riding on the roadway. If the community is looking for a biking and hiking solution, then you need to get off the roadway. A trail separated from the road and within the right-of-way is one solution. Finding a utility corridor is another solution. The DNR does recommend a multi-use trail whenever possible, and it was provided to us from Chris Bennett. So if you look at the survey sampling on the right, the pie charts, if you look at the results of an early survey, what is the main reason that you would use a trail pathway system? This is all feedback from Brandon Township residents on the survey. Recreation, exercise, and nature observation are the top three categories, specifically recreation and exercise. If you look at what activities people would enjoy doing on the trails and pathways, and again, this is Brandon Township residents, it's mainly hiking, walking, running, and biking. Those are the two main constituents of what people enjoy doing on a trail. We then looked at the safety and liability aspects of a trail. And in summarizing the information that we collated, all federal, state, and local laws apply to trails. Trail design must meet the AASHTO standards for emergency access and MMU TCD for traffic safety. The AASHTO is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, and MMU TCD is the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. There are plenty of variety of options for safety patrol presence to deter crime, including hired volunteer police patrols, Macomb Orchard Trail, Paint Creek is an example, and Trail Advocate Eyes on Trail, Pollyant Trail is an example of that. We had an interview with Lieutenant Greg Glover, and looking at annual cost of patrol, $4,000 on basically a no-frills approach to using existing staff and without the use of volunteers. Insurance rates based on budgetary expenditures, those would be about $100 per year to the township. Lawsuits would be handled by or the cost would be covered by the township's insurance carrier if that was required. We also looked at the cost of construction for a trail. A brief summary of that. HRC, and that's the engineering firm Hubble, Roth, and Clark, they estimated, and that was the 4 routes that you have seen and talked about, the range was between 5 and 8.5 million, which also includes 10% for the contingencies on cost overruns. The construction costs can be covered 100% by MNRTF, TAP, and private grant funding removing construction cost burden to the township and the residents, and I'll touch on that in just a second. Which moves us to the funding sources. So this is a chart that was last updated on February 20, 2017. You have the 3 funds, MNRTF Trust Fund. MNRTF is the Michigan National Resources Fund. TAP is the Transportation Alternative Program, and then you have private foundations. You can see that the biking and hiking dollars that were in the kitty basically as of February 2017, 159 million for biking, combining the 3 of the groupings, and their total is 250 million. If you look at the trail management aspect, which is another grouping of information we compiled, trail management summary. The trail management plans and maintenance resources, they vary significantly trail to trail, and it's determined by the surface, location, and use of the trail, and whether the trail is a side path, which is adjacent to road or homeowners, or a shared use path, which is a corridor. And obviously the routes that were being looked at here combine both of those. A trail maintenance plan must be submitted in the grant application in order to be eligible for grant funding. A 2014 Rails to Trails Conservancy survey of 300 trails concluded that estimated costs per mile for asphalt surface trail, and the adjusted numbers a little over $2,000 per mile, and a non-asphalt surface in current dollars is $1,053. You would also want a part-time trail manager, and that estimate was $6,900 annually. Safety patrol, as I mentioned earlier, around $4,000. So as an example, if you had an 8-mile asphalt paved trail through Brandon Township, the estimated cost of management, maintenance, and patrol would be a little over $30,000 annually. That's $3,800 per mile, or just about under $5 per parcel in volunteer, or in Brandon Township, and that's not using any volunteer help. So in closing, I know there's been a lot of discussion around our proposal in that in terms of what's been presented, but I just want to note that in our September 11 meeting minutes, under the new business and the review of our presentation, the entire subcommittee reviewed and modified the presentation that will be presented to the board. Additional slides and adjustments to that presentation were made, and then the presentation was approved by the subcommittee, and I was nominated to give that presentation, which was on 9/21. And again, that's on the township website if everybody wants to go look at that. I do want to make sure that The trail subcommittees are thanked. Everybody did a great job. Kathy Thurman, Candy Hill, Terry Darnell, Chris Cordella, myself, Paul Barber, and Jennifer Bickle. I know everybody on the committee spent a lot of time and effort to put all this information together. We gathered basically 1 gigabyte worth of data that we presented to the board in electronic format. So for an appendix, basically the electronic information we presented to them included bicycle trail information, contact lists, the count of the driveways across all the trail routes, grant information, legal information, the entire grouping of questions that were presented to the board, resident letters, so we addressed both board questions and resident questions, safety, our meeting agendas, our individual applications to be on the subcommittee, a variety of statistics, our timeline, and surveys. We also presented them with images, a variety of images of different trails and signage and things like that. And then there's a video folder that includes interviews with members of different areas that have trails, supervisors, police, etc. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Dwight. So next on our agenda is discussion. Before we get to our discussion, I wanted the board members to know that we do have Nikki and Melissa from the DNR over there with Kristen Wolfang from Oakland County, so they're here to, so that we can ask questions if we have any questions for them. Next, we have Trustee Marshall, who's doing a presentation of facts not presented by the Trails Subcommittee on 9/21/17. And I just wanted to state that I let Trustee Marshall know that all items for consideration by the board shall be accompanied by a cover letter and supporting documentation for review by the board prior to the meeting, which is in our policy, but he let me know that he cannot provide us with details of the information, so I don't know if anyone else up here has seen the information, but a lot of us have not seen the information, and this is the first time that we'll be able to get the information as right now.
Yeah, I don't want this to sound like it's the Bob Marshall show here. What I want to do is I want to address a few items. As a matter of fact, I have seen the information presented. I was unwilling to present it to Supervisor Thurman or to the subcommittee because it was my belief, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else, that there was a underrepresentation of the negative view of trails. Because of that, the fear was that we presented information that we were going to present to the negative aspect of the trails, that it would just be manipulated and turned back around, and it would be like a dog chasing its tail. So, like I said, I don't want this to be the Bob Marshall show. There's other board members up here that have questions. I'm fairly certain that at least 5 of us have seen the information that I'm referring to. But let me first say that I want to apologize. I want to apologize to the citizens that are for trails. I want to apologize for citizens that are opposed to trails. Because in my opinion, this has been the most grossly mismanaged and poorly orchestrated community program I have ever seen in my life. After 2.5 years, we are still sitting here discussing the nuances of where a trail is going to go, and without the exact location of those trails, there is no way that we can present an accurate assessment of what the costs are going to be, either for construction, for maintenance, for security, or any other items that the subcommittee has brought our attention to. So I want to apologize. Now I want to apologize because this mismanagement has caused a rift in this community like I have never seen in over 20 years as a resident here. And I think it's just a damn shame that in this small of a community, which has always been very close-knit, that this is the kind of nonsense that will tear us apart. So I apologize because this has been just a fiasco. I had also promised weeks ago that I was going to do a written presentation of why I am voting no. And I will tell you right now, I'm voting no on the trails. I've been very upfront about that lately. And I told the residents I was going to give a written explanation of my rationale for voting no. I tried to keep it short, I really did. It came to 3 pages, a single-spaced. I'm not going to bore you with all 3 spaces, all 3 pages of this. Thank you, I get applause for that. I have already sent this document to the Citizen newspaper. Now, whether they choose to print it or not, it will be available, hopefully, to them. If they do not, if you want to see it, my email address is on the website for the township, and I will be more than happy to forward it to you. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about now dovetail in with the presentation I wrote. There's a couple of things that I'm going to address right now, and then the remainder of it we'll address later on when we're discussing before the vote. First, I want to thank the subcommittee. Whether you agree with their findings or not, everybody on that subcommittee put in a lot of hard work. And they put in time of their own, wasn't reimbursed. They did a lot of studying on the facts, and it's been a very controversial topic. So I want to thank them because this is an example of citizens coming forward to help the community. Like I said, they're not a board member, they're volunteers. Whether you agree with them, their findings or not, they put a lot of hard work into that, and we should be thankful for the work they did. Brandon Township inclusion in the IBT, the Iron Belt Trail project, has been extremely divisive, with both proponents and detractors having passionate views on the issue. There's been misinformation spread about the trails, which has been allowed to perpetuate, without pushback or correction by the township's administration. The township supervisor has been an active advocate of the trail, and I have no problem with taking a public position on an issue. God knows I've taken a public position on this issue. I do take exception to allowing misinformation to remain in the public eye without setting the record straight. So that's the first part of my dissertation here. What I want to do is I'm going to ask for some assistance from 2 of the members of the subcommittee, Trail Subcommittee. Paul, can you help me out with this? Paul Barber is the one that brought the information first to me. And like I said, at least 5 of the members here have seen this information. So what I want to do is I want to start with a basic question of information that is not fully covered by the subcommittee findings and their subsequent survey review, that you just heard now. Oh, question for you.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay, all right.
There's the first thing that has to be clarified.
Okay.
The presentation, I never approved that presentation because first of all, I never saw the final presentation.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
No, I did not. Okay, because we had a meeting on Monday.
Okay.
And they had a meeting on Thursday, which I couldn't go to because I was working. So I never approved it, and that is being forced on me to say it in a slide, highlighted in red, that I approve that. I do not approve it.
Okay, so I have a question. That'll be an excellent first question. As a member of the Trails Subcommittee, did you feel your position opposing trails was overwhelmed by those who were actually...
Do I feel like it was... Yes, I do. I felt Kathy. I brought multiple things. I brought stuff on erosion. I brought stuff about inconsistencies in those findings in those spreadsheets. I gave you a whole list of issues right here. Here's the list. This is never in the presentation. None of this stuff. Here's pictures showing the problems with the routes. Okay. There's stuff in there about DEQ stuff, all the wetlands. Emily Lake Road, you're telling me you only need 175 feet of water. Hummer Lake Road. The whole route in. Sherwood
Paul,
Road.
they can't hear you. More than
Okay. So, yeah, so, no, yes, I do feel like that my opinion was blown off. I mean, it was not taken seriously. I felt like anything I would bring to their attention, I was always walked over or just blown, oh, you're just anti-trail, so.
Okay, and so just to reiterate, I'm sorry if I interrupted. Just to reiterate then, the presentation that was presented to us back on September 21st, and the recap you just...
There was stuff in the presentation on the 21st.
That you've never seen before.
I have never seen, okay?
All right. So,
And it's obvious that it's put in red, and that we all agreed. I did not agree to that. I did not agree to that.
all right, so let me get the ball rolling with some of the questions here. One of the points you bring up is the total cost is understated by $6.5 million. Okay.
Yes.
How did you arrive at that number?
Well, first of all, how do I arrive at that? Well, if you look at the boardwalks, I'm coming up, if you go on the DEQ maps, and you look at those maps, and they show the wetlands, okay, a boardwalk, I'm coming up with like 4 miles. Okay, now in the studies, I'm seeing 175 feet of boardwalk. Okay, even if I'm half around, so say it's 2 miles, right? Okay, well, it's 600 foot, $600 a foot. Do the math.
All right, so...
I have like $8 million for just the freaking boardwalks.
So in your opinion,
Yes.
in your estimation, it would be unrealistic to set a construction cost without knowing the exact route being taken.
Absolutely.
And the location of that exact route.
What side of the road it's going to be.
Exactly.
Because of the wetlands.
Right. Did you ever happen to see the question I asked the subcommittee about I want an exact location for all the trails?
Yes, I did.
And not just a line drawn down the road?
Yes, I did.
Was that ever addressed?
No, it was not.
No, it was not. Thank you. All right, does anybody else have stuff they want to bring to attention?
I have a single thing about it. We've been painted, in this presentation, whether it was a couple weeks ago or even tonight, we've been painted a very rosy picture of how this is. I was surprised by the final slide, 0 cost.
Right.
We're taking these $1 million project and somehow it's magically, we're going to have 0
Correct.
cost.
Correct.
Have we seen other emails from Michigan officials, DNR Oakland state level, that indicate that maybe the amount of funding that we're counting on isn't necessarily available?
Yes, we do have that. Yes, okay, hang on. Let me just, can I speak here for a minute?
We have the DNR right here
Yes,
who can
okay,
answer
so
that question.
in one of the slides,
This question was directed to Paul.
in one of the slides, yes, there was a,
Bob, you asked if anyone else had questions, I believe. And so
Okay, so-
you let Scott. Okay.
Paul has to
All
answer.
right.
okay.
Go ahead.
So, as of September 13th, there was a question asked, and actually, Kathy, you asked the question to Ms. Wilkfin. She referred it over to Ms. Bennett about the private funding. As of 9/13, okay, now on that slide, you were showing that we were going to get $4.9 million of private funding. Now, as of 9/13, here's the actual wording. In regards to private funds, there currently are none, which means 0. But we are working on getting some. So to me, instead of sitting and worrying about a survey, if 40 addresses are valid or not, this came in on that day. This email came on that day. What are you worried about 40 addresses, if they're valid or not? We just lost like 95% of our funding for the trail. That's not a big deal to anybody? I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? Okay? So how are we going to pay for this? That's my big question.
And I would like to refer that to the folks from the DNR and Kristen Wilping. This is where we got our information. Kristen Bennett is from the
Ms.
DNR.
Wilping
And Melissa
referred
and Nikki were.
So,
Here you go.
hello, my name is Nikki Van Bloom. I'm the trail specialist for the southern half of the state. So Oakland County is one of my counties. First, I want to say thank you for the invitation to this meeting tonight, and I appreciate all the input that we heard, whether you're for or against. I appreciate the honest opinions and concerns that you have all expressed, so thank you for doing that. To answer your specific question about funding, it is true, we have not raised any private dollars yet. We are working on that. We have a team of fundraisers. They are in the process. We have a number of large asks out. We believe we're on the edge, I guess I can say, of raising those funds. But it is a long process. We're not going to raise $250 million in one ask. This is a long process. Building a trail is a long process. So no, we do not have that funding right now. It is something that we are working on. And then the plan for funding is to use some of those private funds to also augment the trust fund dollars, TAP dollars, other grant monies that are out there. So that is correct. We do not have any private funds raised yet.
So if I may ask a follow-up question, is there any guarantee of the amount of funding you will receive?
There is not.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on that. So if there's no guarantee on the funding, then there's no guarantee that we'll get the 4.9 million. Is that correct? So if we start building this trail and the funding doesn't come, then the trail just stops, or what do we do with it? Or do we have to come up with the funds ourselves?
I don't think you would start building the trail until you had the funding in place.
But then I've seen other places are only getting $30,000 a year. So if we're only getting $30,000 a year from some of these funds, we're going to have to save for 10 years before we can start the trail? Or more than 10 actually to get to $8 million. I'm just trying to figure out the money. I'm always one that asks the money questions because I'm
Absolutely.
CPA and I just don't know how I can, we don't have a millage for this. We don't have money just setting aside when we have OPEB liability that is kind of on the border of being critical per the new state that regulations that they gave out. Our pension fund every year is dropping 1%. Our roads need work. I just don't know where we get the money from that, because this is a reimbursable grant. So we have to pay for it first and then we get reimbursed. And the funding's not there, so we don't even know if we're going to get reimbursed. What happens?
If I may, my name is Kristen Loping. I'm principal planner with Oakland County Economic Development and Community Affairs. And I go make these comments on folks in the audience and thank the board. The plan is really to come up with a funding plan. Once you select a route, we can then do some preliminary estimates and we can put a funding plan together. This doesn't get built all at one time. You'll probably likely be doing it in sections.
But if we pick a route and the funding never comes, what happens?
I have an upcoming meeting with the funders that are raising funds for the DNR. He needs to know active projects that are looking at construction in the near future. He's also looking at proposed projects, which Brandon Township would fall into if you select to be a part of the Iron Bell Trail. He needs to know a ballpark number. He's not going to raise $20 million if he doesn't have to.
Is it guaranteed? Okay, so I guess here's my question. If I say yes to doing this trail, and the funds don't come, are we stuck doing it ourselves because we said yes to you and you've then gone to Groveland and you've gone to Atlas and all below us? I mean, what happens if the funds don't come? Can we back out of doing it?
That's where the funding plan comes in. So we can work with developers as they're implementing, along M15. You work with the developer that's building the new credit union. You require them to put in a pathway along M15 or build it as well.
Does it be shovel ready before we go in for the grants?
The township board will need to select a route. We'll then put plans together for design engineering. Correct. So we may phase that into multiple phases.
So we still have to have the money up front and be shovel ready before you give us the grant.
That's where the phases come in. So we will look at phase 1, phase 2. We will put cost estimates to those phases, and we will build them as project funds are available.
Okay. So the matching, the DNR grant, that's up to $30,000 maximum per community, and that's $30,000 per year max.
DNR is $300,000 for development grants per year.
Okay. And each community gets $30,000 max. Is that correct? Because the DNR that I saw, there were 41 applicants, 16 got them, and the biggest one was 30 grand.
Yes, you are correct.
So we aren't even, yeah, right, we're not going to get this up front.
Right, so let me explain what those grants were. In the last, we did 3 rounds of Iron Bell mini grants, up to $30,000. And those were intended to be planning grants. So that $30,000 doesn't cover any construction. That's not nearly enough money to even talk about construction. But it does do planning. It can do some route studies, it can get some preliminary cost estimates. Those are what those grants were for. Now, moving forward, and we had a small amount of money that we had pulled out of one of our grants to be able to supply those two communities. Moving forward with our fundraising group and with some money from the general fund that Governor Snyder has appropriated, we are hoping to, we are planning to, I shouldn't say hoping, we are planning to, augment those and then use that as match money to get some of these into some of these larger pots like the trust fund and TAP. So those 30,000, you are correct. We had a number of grants that were capped at 30. We are not doing that anymore. We are trying to move into the next phase. We may still do some of those. I mean, if you only need a planning grant, we're not going to give you $1 million. But we are looking to phase those in to provide match money so you can leverage that to get some of these larger grant amounts.
So my follow-up question for you would be then, given that these grant funds are not guaranteed, okay, is it unreasonable to have up here in a presentation that construction costs are going to be 0?
Yes.
It is unreasonable. Thank you.
Has it ever been 0 to any township? I mean, are we going to get 100% of this given to us is the way it's been given to me? I just really wish this was gone about different. I really wish we sat down and met with you guys and really did a workshop of how this would go. I just think that if we would have planned it better, like they said, picked the route, figured out all the pros and cons and all the ins and outs of the route, then went to the people for a vote and if they wanted a mill or whatever, and then decided. So I know that's not your guys' fault. I'm just trying to figure out, has the township ever been given 100% to pay for this trail, like they say we're going to be?
I would like to refer to your 5-year park and recreation master plan. In that document, there are maps that describe the pathways that the township would like to see for trails and paths within the community. We take those very serious.
That's not what I asked.
Right, so, but within that, you have a plan on how to fund those trails. And so I would strongly suggest for your action plan that you take those documents very seriously. I know the DNR reviews them and I review them as well at the county. And that's why we're here. That's why we're looking at various routes. But I would say, you know, we could use trust fund, National Resources Trust Fund, which is $300,000 for development, and we could match TAP grants through the through MDOT, along with some private funding.
Can I ask a question?
That's where your funding plan comes together. We have not done that.
Right, I know we haven't done any of that, and I'm not against trails. I love trails. I take my kids on trails. My kids were asking all summer, when are we going to go? When are we going to go? When are we going to go? So I'm not against it. I'm just trying to figure out the financial side of it because I don't want to put a big financial burden on my residents who already have high taxes and they didn't vote for a millage, so I don't want to take it from somewhere else to put for the trail and then just say, oh, well, we're going to raise this fund because you've already voted for that. And now it's not really a trail fund when it becomes a trail fund. My question though was, has any township or city or community received 100% for a trail where they've never put in a dime?
I've seen acquisition 100% covered.
Not just acquisition, the whole cost. The whole cost, like it says up there.
Communities need to provide funding into the process. That's where your funding plan comes from.
Double cost.
So then your answer would be a simple no, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
The township needs to identify some funding.
We're trying not to ask too difficult questions.
I'd like to ask Kristen a question. Kristen, on one of our slides, it lists for biking the amount of funds available, and we were told private foundations is $108 million.
But it's not there, that's what it is.
Okay, it's
What's the
page
slide number? What page, yeah.
51.
Yeah, but it's not there.
So I believe we got that information from you on the slide, and I was just wondering how those numbers got put in there if there's no funding.
Okay. So this slide that we are looking at is a goal. We have. You guys want the answers, right? You want them straight? This is not money we have. We put together a funding plan. We put together what we think we need to complete almost 2,000 miles of trail. And what we think we can get from each grant source, from the trust fund and from TAP, and then what we need from private foundations to augment that, or to supplement that, I should say. So that's how we need $250 million to do this entire project. Brandon Township is included in that money. That is what we are actively working to fundraise. That is what we are working on partners to get grants from TAP and Trust Fund for. This is money that we know that we need because we had to have a plan, we had to have a funding plan before we could start moving forward because our fundraisers need to know what their goals are in fundraising. So that's what this slide is. And I think there's maybe a few other slides that are similar to this. So when you say, do we have any private money raised? Our goal is 168 million.
How much do we have?
We do not currently have any.
So I understand.
Which is what the answer to my question was earlier when you asked if we had any private money. We do not.
Okay, I understand you're in an extremely difficult position here because you're dealing with some rather edgy questions. So I do really appreciate your honesty.
Sure.
Because this may very well be the only honest responses we've had to this whole process. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else that maybe I didn't cover yet, or?
Well, my other concern is with the right-of-ways, okay? Right-of-ways to me are a pretty big deal because, as I found out from the building inspector, the right-of-ways don't necessarily actually down the middle of the road, especially on dirt roads. They can be on the other side. He's actually showed me where roads aren't even in the right-of-way, okay? So, going across, believe it or not, there have been 6 routes, either proposed or talked about. 6. You got A, B, C, D, and then you have Seymour Lake to M15, and then all of a sudden you have those big transmission lines. Okay. Well, those are talked about. I have stuff in here that I can give you. I'll show you the stuff in there that we're talking about, okay? But anyways, so my big concern is you go across between 119 and 150 driveways. And you're gonna have to take land. So the question you guys need to answer, are you gonna do that? You're gonna take people's property, because you're gonna have to do it. Out of 100, I don't know how many, 10%, 15%, 5%? That would be my first question. Second question, how much is that gonna cost? Where are we gonna get the money to do that? That's a whole separate project. To find out how much you're gonna have to take, how much is it worth? And then people, I don't think people are just gonna roll over and say, oh, give me whatever you feel like giving me, right? It's gonna be, they're gonna take you to court and you're gonna have to pay all those fees. So that to me is a huge part. I don't know how much that's gonna cost. I have no idea. So to me, it's a pretty big deal.
Thanks, Paul.
If those questions you just asked, could we ask our experts over here the team? So I think the first one is taking of land. Has there ever been any trails put in where it was not necessary to take land?
Yes. And maybe Kristen can jump in on this a little bit for some more specific examples, but a lot of the trails that we work with are rail corridors, and in that case, we are not taking land. And there are other cases where we have been able to keep trails within right-of-ways, so there is no taking of land. And I can also say that trust fund and potentially TAP as well, they will not pay to take land. They will pay for acquisition, but they will not pay for eminent domain, the taking of land. So that is not the route that we tend to go.
Can you describe the difference between taking of land and acquisition?
Acquisition would be a willing sale. So I'm willing to sell you my parcel of land versus the government is going to come in and say, we're going to take however much we need for a public utility.
So for acquisition, there is funding available.
Correct.
But acquisition is only if the people agree to let us buy their land.
Correct. There may have been other questions. I did not hear all of Paul's questions, so if I'm supposed to be answering something else, you'll need to reiterate what that was.
Is it true that for a TAP grant, it has to be shovel-ready?
They want to see these implemented as soon as possible. When those funds are committed, you have to be ready to construct them. They don't like sitting on those funds. I've actually had projects rescinded because they've sat on them for too long.
So that is yes.
That is correct. They need to be ready to go as soon as your funds are committed. They require a construction plan within that, and you can tell them when your start date is.
Okay, so on an 8-mile trail, I asked you this question. Is it true that it would probably take more than 10 years to build if we're going to do that in segments? Is that a realistic figure? 10 years, 12 years?
Trails take time. I cannot put a time estimate on it. I have a 5-mile trail that's going in right now. It'll probably go in 2 years. It just varies on the right of way and any other environmental issues that you have to overcome.
Okay, and then is it true though for the grant process, you can only do it up to 10 years? Is that, can you reapply each year for 10 years? What happens after 10 years? Who pays that?
Which grants are you?
The TAP grant? I think that's what
TAP will let you continuously work on your application until you get to something that's fundable.
Okay, what about the DNR grant?
The DNR is an annual grant. Yeah, so you can apply once a year if you are not successful this year. You'll get feedback and you can apply again next year, and you can keep doing that until either you get the grant or stop applying.
Okay, so there isn't a 10-year.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I thought I read somewhere that it was a 10-year. You can only do it for 10 years. Yes.
We have a question here too.
I just wonder, has Groveland Township been talked to? Because once our trail ends, it has to go through Groveland to continue north.
Yes, I've spoken with Supervisor DePalma and as well as their township board at the beginning of this process. So we will revisit that if a route is selected within Brandon Township.
Obviously, we have a microphone shortage.
I was told that for these grants, if the trail goes on a 4-way, so there's a road going one way and a road going the other, there has to be a blinking light. Is that true?
I'm not aware of any. There needs to be a traffic control device on.
It was on the Astro book.
There needs to be a traffic control device on one of those segments of road. So you either need a stop sign or a blinking. I'm not aware of any requirement for a blinking light.
Depending
depending on the road jurisdiction, we could certainly consult with the road commission, and all of those would need to be reviewed by the road agency as well. So if it's on M15, NDOT would review those plans. The road commission would review any other roads within the township that are under their jurisdiction.
Okay, so I'm curious about the routes of, because now all of a sudden people are bringing up, let's do Seymour Lake to M15. I know when the study was done, 4 routes were chosen, and that one wasn't one of them. Is there a reason why Seymour Lake to M15 wasn't chosen, or any reason why any part of Oakwood wasn't chosen? Along with, okay, do that part, and then I have a second part to that.
Yeah, so Oakwood and Seymour Lake Road are both truck routes. So you have freight trucks or large trucks that go through both of those roads. They're both high speed limits. There's narrow shoulders on each side, which could certainly be widened out for on-road bicyclists that are comfortable riding in the road. That is an option to widen out those shoulders a little bit to pave them.
So if we could consider one of those roads, could we still qualify for the grants, or because of the special qualifications or of whatever of the grants, would we maybe not be in the running for the grant funds because we picked a route that wasn't particularly picked to start with? Does that have anything to do with it?
Since it wasn't safe enough.
Since it wasn't safe because it's the truck routes, is there?
As long as you build the facilities to AASHTO standards, you would qualify for the grants.
Okay. And then my next question is, and if I speak wrong about the village, I apologize to anybody from the village, but I know the village had voted no on some trail issues going on within the village of having trail routes within the village. So some of our routes that we have chosen end up in the village. What happens when we get to the village if the village isn't going to do anything? Are we just going to pay for the route within the village? And is the village going to allow it to come through? And that's just like, if we did this and Groveland then says no, what happens to our trail? Because there's no yes yet from Groveland, like you said, you haven't talked to them yet. So then what happens?
We have spoken with Groveland. They were waiting on a route from Brandon Township.
Pardon me?
We have spoken with Groveland. They are waiting on a route from
But
Brandon
they haven't
Township.
said yes or no yet.
That's correct. We will need to go through this process with them as well.
So if they say no, what happens then to our trail? That's just my question, because I know they haven't said yes or no yet. I've talked to Groveland.
I would strongly suggest that you look at the township as a whole. And if community walking and biking are important, then you look at the township as a whole. You don't just consider the Iron Belt Trail route. So if that is important, then those connections will be made to those key destinations. Beakies, Cooks, any other parks within the community, the schools. Those are where you try to fix, make those connections to.
Okay, so I only have one further question. If the Seymour Lake route to M15 route were brought up to the standards that would be appropriate for us to receive grant funding, like you just said, would that be substantially higher in cost than the other routes?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you talking about bike lanes? Are you talking about a shared use pathway? Are you talking about?
Exactly my point. We don't know, right?
Right.
Okay, all right.
So we don't know.
We need to do another preliminary engineering study to look at cost estimates.
You do?
Paul, I guess I have another question for you. Do you know of any information that was found by the subcommittee that wasn't given to us? And if there's too much to go over, there's too much to go over. I'm just curious if there's anything that was
Yes.
found.
The answer to that question is short is yes. Yes, there's stuff like the high-power transmission units. That was discussed without.
Because I couldn't make the 6-hour trail meetings I worked during the day. I just said I couldn't make the subcommittee trail meetings, even though I was.
You can't hear Paul.
Oh, you can't hear Paul, sorry.
Oh, yes, there were decisions made that I guess that you guys should have known about that weren't communicated to. Just like the $4.9 million, that to me is a pretty big deal. You guys probably should have got that email. I think that's I think the thing on the right-of-way is a pretty important deal because that's going to cost the township money. That wasn't, that was left out of the slides for some reason. I know why it was left out of the slides, but.
Well, and I know there's, okay, I'll say that later. I guess I'd like to know from the other subcommittee members if they all approved of the slideshow and agreed upon everything.
I did not. I did not see it. I did not receive it until the 21st meeting here. So no, I did not.
I saw it, I went through it with Paul, he was with me, he was sitting right next to me.
You mean during the meeting?
That is not true.
During the entire 6-hour meeting, we went through slide by slide by slide.
That is not true, Chris. They had a meeting that Thursday. We had a meeting on Monday. There was another meeting on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, okay? That meeting I was not at. There were slides on the 21st that I never saw, okay? So don't put words in my mouth. You're not speaking the truth.
All right. You're absolutely correct, Paul. Okay?
May I make a
sorry.
comment?
The bottom line is we did have a chance to go over the majority of the slides. Would you agree with the majority of the slides? Is that fair enough?
I do not agree with the majority of the slides. I do not agree with the majority of the presentation.
How about you, Candy?
Okay.
We reviewed the slides that
Yeah.
were presented.
I can't hear over
there. There were changes made that we did not get to review because they were done in a meeting Thursday morning when the rest of us were at work. And those were what were presented. So there were changes made that we did not approve, but we did agree Monday that we went through all the slides, these were the changes we agreed to, they were supposed to be made, but then we never saw the approved final presentation. And I did ask for it, for us to have access to it at the Monday meeting, and we were denied.
So is there stuff you don't agree with then?
Wait a minute. There's some stuff I think could have been explained a lot better, like the insurance. It says right in there that there's no effect. Well, that depends. My insurance agent told me that my insurance rate will go down because it's based on my homeowner's value, which is going to decrease when they put a trail in my front yard. But then it's going to increase because it's going to be higher liability due to the threat of the trail being in my front yard with security, and the net change to my homeowners was $2.30. So technically it was true, but it's not explained. There were other issues like that within the presentation that just were not, they were glossed over.
Unless the other board members have any more questions, I think.
I just wanted to chime in on that question.
Okay.
It's my understanding that when we had that 6-hour meeting, we went through all the slides and agreed on the content, and then I was told that the slides had too much information, so they made like 2 slides out of 1 slide so that it would be more visible on the screen. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that what happened, Dwight and Jen?
Am I allowed to speak?
Quite honestly, I'm pretty ticked off at the accusations that are being thrown out here at the subcommittee and what actually happened during the process. First of all, I would like to state that Paul was invited to both meetings for the development of the presentation. The first one, he declined to attend and did not come. He was ill and said he could not come. The second one, on Thursday the 14th, Paul, I sent you an email. I asked you if you could come. If you would come, I did not receive one email from you indicating one way or another. You didn't come. Now, Paul, I'm speaking. That presentation, we sat there on that Monday. Ms. Darnell, you weren't there because you were working on the taxes, and you were there for 30 minutes. You received a copy of the presentation that we reviewed and examined, and at any time you could have connected with any one of us to voice your opinion on what you would have wanted changed on those slides. The presentation was not the only document that we provided to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees received an Excel spreadsheet that we went through question by question by question. We approved all of the answers that were in that document, and the combination of the presentation and that source document were the answers that were provided to the Board of Trustees, along with a bunch of electronic thumb drive that was filled with all of the documentation that were our sourced documents. The presentation was not the final report. It was a compilation of the materials that we had put together. Now, once we went through page by page with all of the questions and reviewed them and answered them and made edits, we went through the presentation slide by slide. We noted which slides needed to be changed, and on that Thursday, basically, that's what Dwight and I did. We pulled those edits into that presentation. We were told it was going to be here. We had to blow up the presentation as far as the font and all different kinds of things like that. So if there wasn't...
Excuse me, Jen, would you mind just backing up a little bit? It's pretty loud. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Talk about passionate, I'm a little bit passionate at the moment. And I'm insulted at the accusations that are being made at the subcommittee. That somehow Mr. Barber and his opinions were suppressed by the subcommittee. That is a simple, false statement.
Ms. Nichol, if I may, my concern is less with what transpired during the subcommittees and what this board did not receive from information from your subcommittee. That's my concern.
You received everything.
Information that was incorrect.
Well, we did.
That's my concern.
You received everything that we had. Everything that we had was in those documents. It was provided to you electronically, it was provided in the Excel spreadsheet, and it was provided in the presentation and the other assorted documents that we provided to you. That is what we had.
We've just gone over several items that were not presented to this board. We did not know, for instance, that 2 other routes were even talked about by the subcommittee. That was all.
We did not discuss routes. We were not asked to discuss a route.
I think we pretty much have an idea of what transpired here and the way it's transpired.
Please,
so we're done.
please, Mr. Marshall, do not insult me.
Yeah, right.
I probably personally put in over 100 hours of my time working on the project.
The subcommittee worked very hard, but Mr. Marshall, do you have any other questions?
I just wanted to say that I wasn't saying, I know you guys worked hard and I appreciate all your work. I was just asking a question. If everybody agreed to it because it was brought to my attention from some of the subcommittees that they didn't. So I'm just trying to find out what there was that maybe wasn't included because I had a telephone conversation with Kathy and with Supervisor Thurman, and I had said, we were talking about something and I had said, so if we didn't ask the question, you're not giving us the information. And she said, well, we're answering your question. So it led me to believe that information was found that could have been pertinent that wasn't shared with us because we didn't ask the question. And then I was told by a few subcommittee members that they didn't approve all of the slides. So I felt this was important information. I'm trying to be transparent to the citizens because I have to represent the citizens. So I'm not trying to cause a fight. I'm not trying to tick you off. What I'm trying to find out is what information do I still need to know to make a sound decision for the residents? Because that's what I'm here for. I'm not here for myself.
May I make a comment, please?
Go ahead.
In terms of the presentation, we had a electronic warehouse, so to speak, a cloud that actually Paul set up. We use that as our information storage. And the presentation, when it was completed, was uploaded to that storage facility, and I informed everybody that it was there and to review it. In addition, if somebody decided not to present or bring forward, a member of the subcommittee not to bring forward information, they were also advised early in the process that anything we had, please put up on the cloud. Any information you have, that is pertinent to the project should go on the cloud so we can make sure that the Board of Trustees receive that information. Can I make a comment? Okay, I have the backup log of the cloud. That presentation was not on the cloud until September 21st, the day of the presentation. It was backed up over 60 times, and I searched probably 20 times, and that was the only document that wasn't out there. That thing was coveted like it was the golden calf. You guys do not want to share that with us.
Oh, that,
It is true, Jamie. It is true.
It is not.
Yeah, it is. It
No.
is. There's the proof right there.
it is not true.
Yeah, it's
All right, let's just agree to disagree on that. Paul, you had mentioned something about 4.9 million. What was that one?
That was the private funding that was on that one.
That was available?
It wasn't.
That's not available. You actually asked the question in this little thing, where did you spend it? She answered the question. I can show you the email if you would like to see.
Yeah, I gotcha. I have a question for the DNR regarding funding. I was led to believe that this would not cost the township any funds. What funds would the township have to pay if we were to do this trail?
I am Melissa Buzzard, the Iron Belt Trail Assistant Coordinator with the DNR. Again, thank you for having us today.
We can't hear you.
Now? Good, thank you. I am Melissa Buzzard, the Iron Belt Trail Assistant Coordinator. Thank you again for having us this evening. I apologize for that misinformation, and it does vary by community how much the project is going to cost. Once you have a route, once you have a plan, you can go forward, but it really does vary, and matches can vary determined on the township. So, again, once the project is determined, we can go from there, and there's grants, there's going to be private funding, and we can plan from that point.
But do you know what the private funding would cover and what the township would be responsible for?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Can I supplement that a little bit? So, in working with other municipalities, one of the things that grantors want to see is some skin in the game. So if the township has some money in it, even if it's not a lot, you know, in a few $1,000s, something, it depends on the cost. But they want to see that the township, the city, the county, whatever the municipality is, has put some of their own money in this. They have found that tends to create a more successful project, especially in the long run when we're looking at maintenance, because you have put funding in it. I have worked with a number of other small, rural, not well-off townships, and they use some private funding, some additional private funding. So one of them, the example I'm thinking of currently, is Stockbridge Township, which is in the southern corner of Ingham County, very rural, about 5,000 people, mostly farms, a blinking stoplight kind of place. They have a community foundation that they got some money from. They have applied for some millage funds from their county. They, I think, put in just a small amount of their own township and village money. The two went together. So to make up that match, because both TAP and trust fund have matched 20% for TAP, 25% for trust fund is the minimum match in that. Now, how that gets made up, it can be through additional private funds, it can be through local private funds, the credit union, the feed store, a lot of times communities will kind of band together, they'll make it a community fundraiser to try to raise that money. Yeah. Thank you. Good thing Kristen's here. And also in-kind contributions can work on that as well, especially for trust fund. So if you have an engineering firm that's located here in the township that can provide some of those engineering dollars or some of the in-kind labor, things like that count as well. So sometimes it's dollars that needs to come from the community coffer, and sometimes it is the community fundraising for itself to then put the dollars in. Don't you hate when you turn it off and you're trying to turn it on?
Kristen, would Oakland County be willing to put in some of their millage tax that they collect in millage taxes toward our project.
The services that the county typically provides are the grant writing process, which is typically a fee that the township would have to pay. So we offset those by our in-kind services to write those grants on behalf of the township and see it through the process, which is quite costly. So no, but no, I've not seen the county ever put money into a project for any community.
Thank you.
I will say having someone else that will write your grant and who's good at writing grants is very valuable. As a grant writer, I'm not very good at it, so you don't want me to help you. You want Kristen to help you.
I've got a question for Paul, okay? And I'm a little confused with this 6th trail that you spoke about. Can you explain to me who was discussing what about?
Who was discussing what? Okay. Here's the deal. I went in to pay my taxes. Jen and Dwight come out. They were in a 6-hour meeting or something in there, and they had a trail picked out. Okay. I just happened to run into them in there. Okay. Jen actually said, "I'm not going to even tell you what the route is." I knew what the route was. Okay. You showed me the route, Kathy, in your office. You showed it to me. It's over 13.5 miles. It's over twice as long as the other one. How much is that going to cost us? Okay, so yes, there is a 6th route.
I showed you a route that's in the county trail plan as a possibility. That was not discussed during the subcommittee.
At this point, it's kind of a moot point.
I think so.
I just was wondering, if it was, because I've been talking,
I've been talking to a lot of people about, ideas that come across my head, and I think even I mentioned some of them to you, and I just was wondering if you were just regarding that, okay? I mean, I just was looking at trying to come up with something that might not, and this was just a private conversation. It had nothing to do with anything.
Yes, it was private.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
that's all. I'm not like saying anything. I didn't know about this conversation yet.
Okay. I guess I'm going to defer to Mr. Marshall and see if he is finished. You're all finished? Okay. All right. Did anyone have, and I believe the subcommittee has been responding right along, but I just wanted to give a subcommittee an opportunity to respond to the presentation or ask any other questions. Jen?
Just regarding the slide that we had inserted, had we known that we found out after the fact about the private foundation's information. This information was not really clarified, and more than likely had Chris Bennett really explained to us in detail what that slide represented, it would have been obviously more clear to the subcommittee as well as what was presented in the presentation. And so I personally would like to apologize for that seeming to misrepresent the funds that are actually there, not knowing that this was really a representation of the goals that they were working towards to provide funding for the trails.
But this was on the 13th.
I'm sorry, what?
That email that said there is no private funding. In regard to private funds, there are currently none. We are working on getting some. That was from Kristen Bennett from the DNR on September 13th. That was before these slides went up. That's when that slide should have come down. It was misrepresentation.
Then as a subcommittee member, Ms. Darnell, you should have questioned it and had us remove it.
You guys all got that email.
Excuse me, what?
You all got it. You all got this email.
I got that after the fact. Many of the communications that were done between the subcommittee members, we were not all included on all of those.
This email came from Kristen Bennett to Kristen Wolfing, Kathy Thurman, Jennifer Bickle.
And so again,
I'm talking, please. Dwight Woodbridge, Nicole Van Bloom, sorry if I messed anybody's names up. And then Kathy forwarded it to Candy Johnson, Paul Barber, Terry Darnell, and Chris Cordell. I'm sorry if you don't open your emails, but you can't tell me that none of you guys opened this. That's all I have to say.
my point is that as we were going through the presentation on September 11th, and this information, so you're saying that this email came on the 13th?
Yes, and then you had a meeting on the 14th.
Yes, we had a meeting on the 14th for the final presentation, which the edits that were already approved on the 11th, we were repeatedly told not to change the presentation because the presentation contents had been approved. Now I worked on the presentation with Dwight on the 14th. On the 15th, I went on vacation and was gone until the following Saturday. The presentation was worked on after the fact and held. Paul had made a remark about it not being uploaded to the cloud. Part of that was because we were waiting on the survey details from the email survey to be validated and verified, and Dwight had to edit the presentation in order to complete that. So I'm just saying it was a miss, and I don't know what else to tell you. That wasn't an intentional thing, and anybody could have said, hey Jen, in that presentation, we need to take that out.
Okay, I understand that, but my issue is that I have to make a decision here for the residents. And if I have a resident who comes to me and says, if I say no, why did you say no? It's 100% paid for. Because that's what the presentation showed, and that's what the website shows now. So when they go out to the website, that's what they're going to see. And someone's going to come to me and say, well, it's 100% funded. How could you turn away $8 million? I mean, how can you do that? So I have a problem with that because I can't believe that from the 13th to the 21st, you would leave, not you, that no one would have changed that for the presentation. I can't believe that you didn't change anything after the 11th. I just have a major problem with that when I'm trying to make a decision and people don't know the true facts of what I'm making a decision on.
Well, I would have to say that there's a telephone and you could pick up and get some information if you were questioning anything.
Ms. Bickle, I appreciate your apology and I accept your apology for any appearance of misrepresentation of the facts. Luckily, we're not in the middle of a congressional hearing, so I think we're done.
Since I transferred that or sent that email to Candy, because that's what we were doing with all of our information, was sending it to her so she could include it in the question and answers. When that came through, my thought was they didn't have the funds there, but I remember Kristen saying that we had this available, so I was going on that premise for this slide. But learning now from the DNR that that's not the case, I think what we need to do is if we're going to keep that up on the website, we certainly need to change it. Because we're finding that out tonight.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
We can. Okay, so now so now we're just finishing up with the subcommittee's responses to this presentation from Trustee Marshall. So is there anyone else on the subcommittee that had any other questions? Or are we all good? Okay. Really, I appreciate so much representation from the DNR and Oakland County being here tonight, because really it cleared up a lot of questions that we had. We're going to move on now to new business, and we still might have some questions, so if I know it's late, I think they want to kick us out in about 10 minutes, but we're going to try to hurry up. Okay. So, for new business, we have deliberation and action on possible approval of the Iron Belt Trail segment through Brandon Township. And, let's see, I think I wrote something. So, presentation of facts not presented by the Trail Subcommittee may be presented to the Township Board. Without being able to see the presentation ahead of time, the subcommittee members cannot respond to the presentation. So that's just explaining what we did. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with mine, and please bear with us. At a previous meeting, Mr. Marshall asked that we all prepare a paper, or how did you term that?
Oh, term paper.
A term paper, because he's a professor part-time and he likes giving out assignments, right? So anyways, I did prepare something. I'll have to alter it as I go. Does Brandon Township want a segment of the Iron Belt Trail? Is the trail wanted by Brandon residents? This is the first question on the research document, and is one that I asked. It has been answered by survey results, the showing of hands, and public comments. For me, it is probably the most important question of the entire study that was prepared by our wonderful Trails Subcommittee. And I would like to thank Dwight Woodbridge, Candy Hill, Jennifer Beckel, Paul Barber, Terry, and Chris for their countless hours of dedicated work that they spent on this project. They made this their other full-time job for the last few weeks and sacrificed their other commitments just so that we would have the most information possible in order to make the best decision for the residents of Brandon. So I was just wondering if everybody could just give them a hand for all that. Everyone knows I support trails. I think a trail through Brandon Township would be a great benefit to the community. One of the public comments was, why are we even considering a trail when our roads are in such bad shape? We should be fixing our roads, lowering the speed limits, and getting sewers. To this question, I refer to the last page of the Brandon Township Master Plan. Developing biking and hiking trails paths was listed as the first priority vision under transportation, and again under community facilities, with the caveat of participating in Rails to Trails. Trails are mentioned a dozen other times throughout the master plan. The township's master plan provides existing and future uses for the township. The master plan is revised every 5 years. As Scott mentioned at our last meeting, it is important for more people to come to the visioning sessions that are offered for the master plan. For the 2009 plan, we had a visioning session and a focus group where public input was encouraged. We will be revising the plan again for 2019. If you see notification for master plan public input in the newspaper, on our website, or hopefully pretty soon on a township Facebook page, please make an effort to come. We want to hear from everyone. Over the past 9 years, I have had several residents approach me asking for a trail in Brandon Township. One request several years ago was from a new teacher who lived near Bald Eagle Lake. She was convinced it would be very easy to get a cement truck to bore a path down the side of M15 so she could ride her bike to work. A trail is a linear park. Many people visit Michigan to use the extensive trail system we have. Trails provide an opportunity for exercise, whether it's walking, biking, skating, running, or even cross-country skiing. There are many studies out there encouraging these forms of exercise to improve overall health. And I'll skip over this part because everybody knows what those studies are. And I support a healthy Brandon Township. So for these reasons, the trail was a vision of the late Tom Stoll, who was a Brandon Township board member for many years. Tom did his best to promote recreation in Brandon Township and did preliminary work on the ITC corridor now known as Route C as a potential pathway many years ago. I was also inspired by the late Charlene Carlson, who also served on the Brandon Township board for many years. Before she passed, she encouraged me to think of the children in the community. Children love to ride bikes. 20 years ago, when my children were young, I would load up our bikes and head to the trails, and we had a blast. But many parents would welcome the opportunity to take their children to a nearby trail. A trail would be of benefit to our school-age children too. Many of the students participate in step or running programs. The trail would allow our cross-country and other sports teams a safe place to run. The next part of my paper was about how it wouldn't cost the township any funds, but I will have to revise that part, and it will. So that is a strike against the trail in my book. However, a segment of the Iron Belt Trail would offer us an opportunity to connect to other trails. So originally, I was envisioning a trail that would connect the village to our park. But then I learned about the Iron Belt Trail and was of the impression that it would offer a lot of funding that we wouldn't have to come up with. So I'm going to skip that part and go to my conclusion. I worked for the residents of the community. I spent countless hours working to bring natural gas into the community because I was approached by residents that wanted it. I had no skin in the game since I have geothermal. There was opposition to even that project, but we were able to get over 50% in each of the 3 sections to sign up for it. Now, Brandon Township's residents are saving over $1 million annually on their energy bills. And getting back to my original thought, I asked the question, is the trail wanted by Brandon residents? I ask this because I know from working with previous grants that we need to show public support in order to get grant funding. And let me just talk about a millage, because I forgot that one. I did say that people have also asked me, why don't we put it on the ballot and vote on it? And the answer is, in order to vote on a topic, you have to add a millage cost to the question. And it's been, in the past, when Brandon Township has asked for recreation villages, they always got voted down. And I thought that this trail could go through without spending money, but now we've learned out differently. And it would be an opportunity, a good opportunity for us. So that was that comment. Getting back to this, we have had the opportunity to listen to a large number of residents who are very passionate about their answers to this question. I would like to say thank you to all who have voiced their opinion. Those in favor have expressed opinions similar to mine. Those opposed have differing opinions, but in listening to them, there is a commonality of seeing the trail as an invasion of privacy. That is not why they live here. Now, let's get to the surveys. The first survey did not ask if a trail was wanted. The second, the 2016 survey, showed 82% of the 407 Brandon Township residents wanted non-motorized trails, with the majority in favor of Route C. The Township Board removed Route C and Route A from consideration, which I feel caused those in favor of Route C to lose their enthusiasm. And as we can tell from tonight, there were a lot of people here still in favor of Route C. The Trails Subcommittee decided to do their own survey. Residents were to email in their responses, and those that didn't have a computer could fill out a paper survey. This survey seemed to grow legs, and according to the scatter map, it showed opposition along all of the suggested routes except for M15, where the responses appeared to be favorable. Many of the businesses in the community are favorable to the trail as well. Unfortunately, for those that want the trail, out of the 718 responses, 54% were opposed to it. This response indicates to me that we have about 388 residents against this trail and will not have enough support for grant funding. And correct me if I'm wrong over there, Melissa and Kristen. In order to get grant funding, we have to show support from the community. Correct?
That is correct. Each of the grant applications ask what public support or what public input you've taken, and if there is opposition to it, how you've modified your project to address those concerns.
Thank you. So therefore, because of the cost and because of the lack of support, I will not be able to support this project. If there's no other comments from the board. Okay. All right. First we have to have a motion, Terry. We can't vote without a motion. So I had a suggested motion.
Question? Question?
No, I'm sorry. There's no questions at this point. I'm sorry. So we have two suggested motions, so.
Okay, the suggested motion is not to build the Iron Bell Trail segment through Brandon Township.
Who supported?
Can we see who supported and who is?
I'll be repeating. Okay, I have a motion by Treasurer Darnell, seconded by Trustee Marshall, to not build an Iron Bell Trail segment through Brandon Township. Okay, then we can have discussion on this.
I just want to say, first I want to say thank you to the Trails Subcommittee for all your hard work. I want to say thank you to the board for all of their hard work. We might not have done the research, but we've had the long meetings. I want to say thank you to the residents because you've had the long meetings and you have been dragged through this, and I apologize for that because to me, this information wasn't given to us 2.5 years ago, and this was kind of, I feel like, a waste of time. I hate to say that. But, Bob asked us to write something, and I didn't write anything because I didn't know how I was going to vote yet because I've tried to stay neutral. I did not vote away Route A or Route C because I wanted to be fair to everybody. I have many people, residents who I know who wanted trails. I know many people who didn't want trails, and I wanted to listen to all the facts and make my decision after all the facts. I wasn't led by fear or by passion. I was looking at this from a financial perspective because I have to be responsibly fiscal to the residents of the township. I feel this process was gone about the wrong way, especially now. The township needed to take a vote. The residents needed to find out how it was going to be paid for and where the funds were going to come from and all of that, etc. It needed to be done different. This is a reimbursable grant. We needed the funds to start with. Like Lake Orion, the lady from Lake Orion said they had it for 10 years, a grant, I think, or the millage going, did she say for 10 years? Atlas has a millage. The maintenance costs on the slides were gonna be wrong because we were gonna be taking funds from somewhere else. I've talked to Lieutenant Glover. That was wrong. He would have needed more manpower. I wouldn't wanna take people's lands, and each route would have done that. And I was saddened to see that the community residents were starting to go against each other. With all of that, of course, I was gonna be voting no because of the financial and the taking of the lands and everything, but I really just apologize. I just was shocked by the change here.
All right, is there any other discussion by the board? Okay, again, I have a motion by Treasurer Darnell, seconded by Trustee Marshall to not build an Iron Bell Trail segment through Brandon Township. Okay, all right, roll call please.
Marshall?
To not support the trail, yes.
Anna? Yes. Broughton?
Yes.
Darnell?
Yes.
DePalma? Yes. Cordella?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Okay, at this time, we will take citizens' comments.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you all would have been Route C, this whole thing would be over. You would have put it on the ballot and it would have won.
Sir, could we have your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike Holman, Upper Lake Road.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks so much for that. All right, Steve, my 3 questions, please. I understand investment's going to cost something. It's going to cost something to invest in this community, right? You don't want to raise taxes. But 3 questions. My 3 questions for you. Your school has declined by 30% in 15 years. Are you concerned about that? I have 3 questions because I've been spending 9 months with you guys. What is your intention with this community?
We can answer if you want to stay after the meeting and come up here, we'll be happy to talk to you.
Here's my second.
No cursing.
No cursing. I know for a fact, Paul and I have told you guys there was no money available. Terry even knew it. We've been telling you every meeting almost, there was no money available. It was matching funds. I am now. Thank you guys.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you, because this is the first time I've ever seen representative government work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did anyone else want to make a comment? All right, seeing none, we'll... All right, I have a motion by Trustee DePalma, seconded by Trustee Cordella to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Meeting's adjourned.